Captain Jake Morrison stared at the star charts floating in front of him. The blue lights showed empty space, just like every other day for the past 3 months. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, was on another boring patrol mission in the outer edge of known space. The year was 2387, and humanity had been traveling between stars for over a century now, but most of space was still empty and quiet. "Sir, we're picking up something strange," said Lisa Carter from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer, a woman with sharp eyes who never missed anything unusual. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Morrison walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal, but not from any human ship. The computer says it's coming from the Kepler 442 system, about 6 light-years away." Lisa frowned at her screen. "The signal is weak and breaking up, but it's definitely artificial." Ryan Phillips, the ship's engineer, looked up from his workstation. "Could be equipment failure from one of our deep space probes." Amy Watson, who handled all communications for the ship, shook her head. "I don't think so. The signal pattern is completely different from anything in our databases. It's almost like someone is trying to talk to us, but using a language we've never heard before." Morrison felt his heart beat faster. In all his years commanding exploration ships, he had never encountered alien life. No human had. Earth's scientists had found dead worlds and old ruins, but never a living alien civilization. "Can you clean up the signal?" he asked Amy. "I'm trying. Sir, the universal translator is working on it, but it's taking time." Amy's face was tight with concentration as she worked. "Wait, I'm getting something now." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Everyone waited as static filled the air, mixed with sounds that were clearly not human voices. Then, slowly, words began to form. "Please. Anyone. Ancient enemy awakens. They have consumed 17 world. We are dying." The voice was desperate, filled with fear and pain. Even through the electronic translation, Morrison could feel the terror of whoever was speaking. "More coming through, sir," Amy said quietly. "They're calling themselves the Volari. They say they're a trading confederation of 12 different species. They've been living together peacefully for over 3,000 years. Morrison leaned forward. "What's this ancient enemy they mentioned?" Amy listened for a moment. Then her face went pale. "They call them the Devourers, sir. According to this transmission, there's some kind of machine intelligence that's been sleeping in the galactic core. Now they're awake and moving outward, destroying everything in their path." Ryan whistled softly. "Machines that eat whole worlds? That sounds like something from a horror movie." "It gets worse," Amy continued. "The Volari say these Devourers don't just destroy civilizations, they consume everything. All the metal, all the organic material, everything that made up entire planets. They use it to build more of themselves." Lisa's tactical display suddenly lit up with new information. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures in the direction of that signal. Whatever's happening out there, it's big." Morrison stared at the star charts again, but now they didn't look empty anymore. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was crying for help while machines consumed their worlds. He thought about Earth's protocols for first contact situations. Command had been very clear. Any contact with alien species had to be reported immediately, and no action could be taken without direct orders from Earth. But Earth was weeks away at faster-than-light speeds. By the time they got orders, the Volari might all be dead. "Amy, are you still receiving their transmissions?" "Yes, sir, but they're getting weaker. I think they're running out of power, or—" She didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. Morrison made a decision that would change everything. "Set course for the coordinates they're transmitting from, maximum speed." Ryan looked surprised. "Sir, regulations say we need to report any alien contact to Earth Command before—" "I know what the regulations say," Morrison cut him off. "But if these Volari are telling the truth, waiting for orders might mean arriving to find nothing but empty space and dead worlds." Lisa nodded slowly. "If there really are machines out there consuming entire civilizations, Earth needs to know about it. We can't learn anything useful from long-range sensors." The journey to the Volari system took 18 hours at maximum speed. During that time, the alien transmissions grew weaker and more desperate. Amy managed to piece together more of their story. The Volari Confederation included species that looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin, others that were more like walking trees, and several types that were completely unlike anything from Earth. They had been a peaceful group, focused on trade and scientific research. Their most advanced weapons were designed for mining asteroids, not for war. When the Devourers appeared at the edge of their territory 6 months ago, the Volari had tried to negotiate. The machines had responded by beginning the systematic destruction of every world they controlled. When the horizon's edge finally arrived at the coordinates, Morrison wished they had stayed away. The Kepler 442 system had once contained 7 planets. Now there were only 3, and 2 of those were being slowly torn apart by massive mechanical structures that looked like metal spiders the size of moons. Where the other planets had been, there were only asteroid fields and floating debris. "My God," Lisa whispered, staring at her tactical display. "Those machines are literally eating the planets." The Devourer ships were unlike anything in human experience. They looked like they had been built from the remains of 1,000 different technologies, all welded together into nightmare shapes that served only one purpose: consumption. Some were as large as cities, others as small as fighters, but all of them moved with the same terrible efficiency. "Sir, I'm picking up a Volari ship," Amy reported, her voice tight with emotion. "It looks like an evacuation vessel, trying to escape the system." On the main screen, they could see a sleek alien ship desperately trying to reach the edge of the system. It was beautiful in a way that human ships were not, covered in flowing curves and artistic designs that spoke of a culture that valued beauty as much as function. Behind it came 3 Devourer vessels, moving like predators, chasing wounded prey. Morrison watched in horror as the alien machines caught up with the evacuation ship. They didn't use weapons in any way humans would understand. Instead, they simply began tearing the Volari vessel apart with mechanical arms and cutting beams, while the refugee ship's occupants screamed across the radio frequencies. Within minutes, the beautiful alien ship was nothing but floating debris, and the Devourer vessels were already collecting the pieces, adding them to their own twisted structures. Morrison stood frozen on his bridge, watching an entire species being erased from existence. The Volari's desperate call for help echoed in his mind, and he realized that humanity had just witnessed something that would change everything they thought they knew about the universe. The galaxy was not the peaceful place they had imagined. It contained horrors beyond human understanding, and now those horrors knew that humanity existed. The emergency meeting room at Earth Command was packed with the most powerful people in human space. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat at one end of the long table, her uniform crisp despite having been awake for 36 straight hours since Morrison's report arrived. Across from her, Defense Secretary Tom Bradley looked tired and worried as he read through the data files for the 3rd time. "This has to be some kind of mistake," Bradley said, shaking his head. "Machines that eat entire planets? It sounds like something from a children's story about monsters." Admiral Sullivan pulled up the video recordings Morrison had sent. The room fell silent as they watched the Devourer ships tear apart the Volari evacuation vessel. The mechanical precision of the destruction was terrifying to watch. When the video ended, no one spoke for a long moment. 17 worlds, Sullivan said quietly. "That's what the aliens said. 17 entire planets consumed by these machines, and they're still moving outward." Dr. Eric Stone, Earth's leading expert on artificial intelligence, leaned forward in his chair. He had been studying the technical data Morrison collected about the Devourer technology. "The energy readings are incredible. These machines are using power sources we can barely understand. And look at this adaptation data." Stone put up a series of charts on the main screen. Every time the Volari tried a new defense strategy, the Devourers changed their attack methods within hours. They're not just following programming. They're learning and improving constantly. President Linda Hayes entered the room, and everyone stood up until she waved them back to their seats. She was a small woman, but her presence filled the room. She had led humanity through 3 different crises in her 6 years as president, but nothing like this. "I've read Morrison's report," she said without sitting down. I've watched the videos. Now I need to know what our options are. Bradley spoke first. Madam President, our first priority has to be protecting Earth and our colonies. We have 200 ships in the fleet, but according to this data, the Devourers have thousands, maybe tens of thousands. We should evacuate our outer colonies and pull everything back to defend the core systems. And let these machines consume the rest of the galaxy? Sullivan asked. How long before they find us anyway? These Volari lived thousands of light years away, and the Devourers still reached them. That's not our problem, Bradley replied. Our job is to protect humanity, not every alien species in the galaxy. Dr. Stone cleared his throat. Actually, it might be our problem whether we want it or not. I've been analyzing the Devourer technology, and I found something disturbing. They don't just destroy civilizations, they absorb their technology and add it to their own capabilities. He brought up a new display showing the evolution of Devourer ship designs. Look at these images from Morrison's recordings. You can see parts of Volari technology built into the Devourer ships. Every species they consume makes them stronger and more advanced. President Hayes studied the images carefully. You're saying they're getting more dangerous with every world they destroy? Exactly. And according to the Volari transmissions, they've already consumed the technology of dozens of different species. Each conquest gives them new weapons, new defenses, new ways to adapt. If we wait too long, they might become impossible to stop. The room fell quiet again as everyone considered the implications. Finally, Admiral Sullivan spoke up. Madam President, I believe we have a moral obligation to help these aliens. But even if we didn't, the practical reality is that these Devourers will eventually reach human space. It's better to fight them now while we still have allies than to face them alone later. Bradley shook his head firmly. We're talking about risking the entire human race on a war we might not be able to win. Our ships have never been tested against technology like this. Our ships have never been tested against any alien technology, Sullivan pointed out. We don't know how we'll perform until we try. President Hayes walked to the window and looked out at the busy spaceport below. Ships were coming and going constantly, carrying people and goods between Earth and the colonies. It was a peaceful scene that might not last much longer. Dr. Stone, in your expert opinion, do we have any chance of defeating these Devourers? Stone was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. Their technology is more advanced than ours in most ways. But they have weaknesses. They seem to prioritize immediate adaptation over long-term strategy. They react to threats rather than anticipating them. Human creativity and unpredictability might give us some advantages. Might, Bradley emphasized. You're asking us to bet everything on might. What's the alternative? Sullivan asked. Run and hide? These machines have been consuming civilizations for months now. How many more will die while we debate? President Hayes turned back to the group. I need options. Real, practical options that don't involve either abandoning aliens to die or throwing away human lives on a hopeless cause. Admiral Sullivan stood up and activated the tactical display. Operation Lighthouse, we send a limited fleet to assist the Volari survivors and assess the Devourer threat directly. 20 ships, including our newest dreadnought. Not enough to risk the entire human fleet, but sufficient to make a real difference. And if those 20 ships are destroyed? Bradley asked. Then we'll know what we're really facing, and we can plan accordingly. But if we do nothing, we'll face these machines eventually anyway, and we'll face them blind. Dr. Stone added, a limited engagement would also give us invaluable data about Devourer technology and tactics. We might learn something that could save humanity later. President Hayes studied the star charts showing Devourer expansion patterns. The machines were spreading in all directions from the galactic core, consuming everything in their path. Several of the expansion routes led toward regions of space that contained human colonies. Admiral Sullivan, if I authorize this operation, who would you put in command? Fleet Admiral Ben Crawford. He's our best strategic mind, and he has experience commanding large fleet actions. For the Dreadnought, I'd recommend Captain Nick Foster. He's young but brilliant, and his crew has the best performance ratings in the fleet. And if this goes wrong? If we lose 20 ships and their crews? Sullivan met the president's eyes steadily. Then at least we'll die knowing we tried to help instead of hiding while others suffered. President Hayes was quiet for a long time, weighing the decision that could determine humanity's future. Finally, she spoke. Authorization granted for Operation Lighthouse. 20 ships, limited engagement, primary mission to assist Valari refugees and gather intelligence on Devourer capabilities. Admiral Sullivan, I want hourly reports once the fleet enters the combat zone. Yes, Madam President, and Admiral, make sure our people know what they're getting into. This isn't a normal military operation. We're stepping into something that could change humanity forever. 3 days later, Fleet Admiral Ben Crawford stood on the bridge of the Dreadnought, indomitable as his 20-ship fleet prepared to jump to Valari space. Captain Nick Foster, a tall man with steady hands and calm eyes, checked the ship's systems one final time. All ships report ready for jump, Admiral, Foster reported. Crawford nodded, looking out at the other 19 ships of his fleet. Each one carried hundreds of human lives, and all of them were about to face something no human had ever encountered before. Take us to the Valari system, Captain. It's time to find out what humanity is really made of. The human fleet arrived at Valari Prime to find a battle already raging. Fleet Admiral Ben Crawford watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as alien ships fought desperately against the Devourer machines. The Valari vessels were beautiful, with smooth curves and elegant designs, but they were losing badly. Dear God, Captain Nick Foster whispered, staring at the tactical display. There are hundreds of Devourer ships out there. The enemy machines moved like a swarm of metal insects, surrounding and overwhelming the Valari defenders. Crawford could see that the aliens were using every weapon they had, but nothing seemed to work for long. Every time a Valari ship found a way to damage a Devourer vessel, the other machines would adapt within minutes. Sir, incoming transmission from the Valari flagship, reported the communications officer. Put it through. The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The Valari looked similar to humans, but with blue-tinted skin and large dark eyes. The being speaking was clearly exhausted and desperate. Human ships, this is Fleet Commander Zeth High of the Valari Defense Force. We thank you for coming, but you must leave immediately. These machines will destroy you as they are destroying us. Crawford stepped forward. Commander Zeth High, I am Fleet Admiral Crawford of Earth. We received your distress calls. We're here to help. The alien's expression showed both hope and fear. Your ships are small compared to the Devourers. They have been learning our tactics for days. Every strategy we try, they counter within hours. They are not just machines, they think and adapt faster than we can. As if to prove the point, a group of Valari ships attempted a coordinated attack on a large Devourer vessel. Their energy weapons struck the machine's hull, causing visible damage. But within minutes, other Devourer ships began modifying their armor, and the same weapons became useless. All ships, this is Crawford, the Admiral broadcast to his fleet. We're going to engage the enemy and buy time for Valari evacuation ships to escape. Remember, these machines learn fast, so keep changing your tactics. Captain Ashley Morgan of the destroyer Relentless was the first to attack. Her ship dove toward a group of smaller Devourer vessels, firing missiles and energy beams. The human weapons were completely unknown to the machines, and several were destroyed before they could adapt. Direct hits, Morgan reported excitedly. Their shields aren't calibrated for our weapon frequencies, but the celebration was short-lived. Within an hour, the Devourers had analyzed the human weapons and begun modifying their defenses. Captain I.A. Foster watched in frustration as his ship's guns became less effective with each shot. They're learning our attack patterns, he told Crawford. Every time we fire, they get better at stopping our weapons. The battle continued for 3 days and nights. The human fleet fought alongside the surviving Valari ships, but it was like fighting an enemy that could see into the future. Every successful tactic only worked once before the Devourers adapted to counter it. On the second day, Captain Ashley Morgan made an important discovery. Her science officer, Pete Williams, was studying wreckage from a destroyed Devourer ship when he noticed something strange. Captain, these machines have incredible adaptive systems, but there's a weakness, Williams reported. They prioritize immediate threats over long-term planning. They react to what's happening now, but they can't predict what we might do next. Morgan understood immediately. So if we do something completely unpredictable, something that doesn't follow normal military logic, they can't adapt quickly enough. She tested the theory by ordering her ship to perform what appeared to be a retreat, then suddenly spinning around and ramming a Devourer vessel at full speed. The machines had prepared for weapons fire or evasive maneuvers, but not for a suicidal charge. The collision destroyed both ships, but it also confirmed Williams' theory. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Harris, commanding a squadron of fighters, took the idea further. Instead of following standard attack formations, he ordered his pilots to fly in seemingly random patterns that made no tactical sense. The Devourers couldn't predict where the human fighters would go because the humans themselves were making it up as they went along. "It's working," Harris reported. "They can't adapt to tactics that have no pattern." But success came at a terrible price. Human ships were being destroyed faster than they were destroying the enemy. The Devourers might have been confused by unpredictable tactics, but they still had overwhelming numbers and superior technology. The worst moment came on the third day when Captain Foster made the ultimate sacrifice. A massive Devourer command ship, larger than anything the humans had seen before, was coordinating attacks across the entire battlefield. Foster realized that destroying it might disrupt the enemy's coordination. "Admiral, I'm going to ram that command ship," Foster announced calmly. "Negative, Captain. Find another way." "Sir, with respect, there is no other way. That ship is the brain of their entire operation. If we take it out, it might give the Volari evacuation fleet time to escape." Crawford knew Foster was right, but ordering a man to his death was the hardest thing he had ever done. "Understood, Captain. Make it count." The Indomitable charged toward the Devourer command ship at maximum speed. Foster's crew had volunteered to stay with him, even though escape pods could have saved most of them. As enemy fire tore through his ship's hull, Foster kept the engines running until the last possible moment. The collision was visible across the entire battlefield. The massive explosion destroyed both ships and sent shockwaves through the Devourer fleet. For several minutes, the machine coordination faltered, and the surviving Volari ships were able to break through the enemy lines. When the battle finally ended, only 12 human ships remained operational. The Volari evacuation had succeeded, but at enormous cost. Most of their population was dead, and their homeworld was being consumed by the machines even as the survivors fled. Admiral Crawford stood in what remained of the Relentless's bridge, which had become the temporary flagship after the Indomitable's destruction. Captain Morgan had survived, but her ship was badly damaged. "Status report," Crawford ordered. 8 ships destroyed. 4 more too damaged to fight, Morgan reported. "Casualty reports are still coming in, but we've lost over 3,000 people." Crawford felt the weight of every death. He had led these people into battle knowing it would be costly, but the reality was worse than he had imagined. "What about the Volari?" "Most of their evacuation ships escaped. Fleet Commander Zeth High estimates they saved about 12% of their total population. The rest?" Morgan didn't finish the sentence. Back on Earth, the reports from the battle caused panic and debate. Some people called Admiral Crawford a hero for saving alien lives. Others called him a fool for risking human ships on a hopeless cause. But Dr. Eric Stone's analysis of the battle data revealed something troubling. Long-range sensors were detecting Devourer fleets moving in multiple directions, expanding outward. From the galactic core, the machines weren't just conquering the Volari territory anymore. They're heading towards 17 different star systems, Stone reported to President Hayes, including 3 that contain human colonies. The president stared at the tactical display showing Devourer expansion routes. Red lines spread out like a disease across the galaxy, and several of them pointed directly toward human space. "How long do we have?" she asked. "At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach our outer colonies within 2 years, maybe less, if they continue to accelerate." President Hayes realized that the Volari's call for help had been just the beginning. Humanity was no longer choosing whether to fight. The fight was coming to them whether they wanted it or not. 6 months after the battle at Valari Prime, Earth looked like a different world. General Claire Thompson walked through the converted factories that had once made cars and computers, but now produced weapons and warships. Every major city had been transformed into a military production center. The entire human race was preparing for a war that many believed would be their last. President Linda Hayes had made the decision that changed everything. Instead of waiting for the Devourers to reach human space, humanity would take the fight to them. It was a desperate plan, but Dr. Eric Stone's research had given them one slim hope. The key is in how they think, Stone explained to a room full of military leaders. The Devourers are incredibly good at adapting to logical strategies, but they struggle with truly creative thinking. They expect their enemies to make sense. Stone pulled up charts showing human brain activity compared to artificial intelligence patterns. When we analyzed Captain Foster's ramming attack and Lieutenant Colonel Harris's random fighter tactics, we found something interesting. The humans weren't just being unpredictable, they were being creative in ways the machines couldn't copy. Admiral Kate Sullivan, who had taken command of the fleet after Crawford's death at Valari Prime, studied the data carefully. So you're saying our best weapon against these machines is our ability to think outside the box? Exactly. We've developed what we're calling the Genesis Protocol. Instead of building bigger guns or stronger shields, we're creating systems that generate random tactical variations faster than the Devourers can adapt to them. General Thompson leaned forward. How random are we talking about? Completely random. Ship movements, weapon targeting, formation changes, everything controlled by true chaos generators. The Devourers won't be able to predict what we're doing, because we won't know what we're doing until we do it. The plan was ambitious and terrifying. Every available human ship would participate in a massive assault on the Devourers' central control nexus deep in the galactic core. They would leave Earth defended by only automated systems and skeleton crews. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the rebuilt Horizon's Edge, understood the risks better than most. He had been there when humanity first learned about the Devourers. Now he was preparing to lead the advanced scouts into the most dangerous region of the galaxy. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures ahead, reported his tactical officer Lisa Carter. The human fleet had been traveling toward the galactic core for 3 weeks, and they were finally approaching Devourer-controlled space. How massive? Morrison asked. Bigger than anything we've ever seen. It's like they've turned entire star systems into factories. The main screen showed what the Devourers had done to the galaxy's core region. Whole solar systems had been dismantled and rebuilt into enormous mechanical structures. Planets had been turned into processing centers, and stars themselves were being harvested for energy. My God, whispered Amy Watson, the communications officer. How many worlds did they consume to build all this? Morrison didn't answer because he couldn't. The scale of destruction was beyond human comprehension. Thousands of civilizations had been erased to create the mechanical nightmare spread out. Before them, Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the fleet communications. All ships, this is Sullivan. We're about to enter the most heavily defended region in the galaxy. Remember your training. Trust the Genesis Protocol. And remember that we're not just fighting for humanity anymore. We're fighting for every species these machines haven't killed yet. The battle began as soon as the human fleet entered the outer edge of Devourer space. Enemy ships appeared from every direction, more than anyone had imagined possible. They moved like a single organism, coordinating attacks across hundreds of thousands of vessels. But the Genesis Protocol worked. Human ships began moving in patterns that made no tactical sense, changing direction randomly, firing at targets chosen by computer algorithms that even their own crews couldn't predict. The Devourers tried to adapt, but every time they figured out one pattern, the humans had already switched to something completely different. Captain Ashley Morgan, now commanding a small squadron of destroyers, watched in amazement as her ships danced through enemy fire that should have destroyed them. It's like we're dancing to music only we can hear, she reported. The human fleet pushed deeper into Devourer territory, fighting battles that lasted for days. They lost ships constantly, but they kept moving forward, driven by the knowledge that this was their only chance. Morrison's ship led the final assault on the central nexus, a structure the size of a small moon that controlled all Devourer operations across the galaxy. Dr. Stone and the Valari scientist Kelthor were aboard, carrying a computer virus designed to confuse rather than destroy. The virus won't kill them, Stone explained as they approached the nexus. Instead, it will flood their network with contradictory commands and impossible tasks. They'll tear themselves apart trying to follow orders that don't make sense. The final battle was unlike anything in human history. Morrison's ship fought its way through waves of defending machines while Admiral Sullivan's fleet held off reinforcements. The Genesis Protocol pushed human creativity to its limits as captains made split-second decisions based on intuition rather than training. The breakthrough came when Admiral Sullivan made the same choice Captain Foster had made at Valari Prime. Her flagship was too damaged to continue fighting, but it could still fly. She aimed it directly at the central processing core of the Nexus. "All ships, this is Sullivan. It's been an honor serving with you. Take care of each other." Her ship's collision with the Nexus core created an explosion that could be seen across the entire battlefield. In that moment of destruction, Dr. Stone's virus uploaded into the Devourer network. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, Devourer ships suddenly stopped moving. Their coordination vanished as contradictory orders flooded their systems. Some machines began attacking each other, others simply shut down, and many started dismantling themselves in confused attempts to follow impossible commands. Within hours, the threat that had consumed hundreds of civilizations was gone. The Devourers had been destroyed not by superior weapons, but by their inability to handle chaos and creativity. Morrison stood on his damaged bridge, watching as the massive Devourer structures began to collapse. Around him, his crew was cheering, but he felt no joy. Too many good people had died to reach this moment. The journey back to Earth took months, and the surviving ships returned to find themselves heroes to not just humanity, but to dozens of alien species. The Valari offered to share their advanced technologies. Other civilizations proposed military alliances, and Earth suddenly found itself at the center of a new galactic community. But the victory had changed humanity in ways no one had expected. President Hayes addressed both human survivors and alien representatives in a speech that would be remembered for centuries. "We came to the stars as explorers," she said. "We wanted to learn and discover and make friends among the stars. But when we were called for help, we found something else inside ourselves. We found that we could be warriors when we had to be. We could sacrifice everything to protect those who couldn't protect themselves." She paused, looking out at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens. "Some of you are grateful to us and some of you are afraid of us. You should be both. We saved the galaxy, but we also proved that humans are capable of unimaginable destruction when we choose to be." In the years that followed, human children learned alongside alien refugees in schools across Earth and the colonies. The species that had once cried for help became humanity's teachers, sharing knowledge and culture that enriched both civilizations. But everyone remembered the lesson of the Devourer War. When Earth was called for help, what they sent was not just aid or assistance. They sent the full power of human creativity, determination, and willingness to sacrifice everything for what they believed was right. The galaxy was safer because of it, but it was also a place where everyone knew that humanity, when threatened or when protecting others, could bring destruction on a scale that even ancient machines could not withstand.